everyone. So it's today's Saturday. So for yesterday, we have this one, Luke Cage, Power Man, which we already talked about kind of before this origin story and stuff because he had a stamp in here. And then tomorrow, well, today's and Sundays is actually Iron Fist. And so it's fitting that they put them, like one right after the other. Since they're such good friends. So, Power Man actually debuted in 1972 in his own series, Luke Cage Hero for Hire, and Iron Fist debuted in Marvel Premiere number 15 in 1974. And how they got to be put together, is because the execs at Marvel decided because Power Man, he had his own ongoing monthly series. They decided they couldn't sustain that. They couldn't, keep that going because it wasn't making enough money. So, and then Iron Fist, he's a character, a background character, but not ever popular enough. He was popular, but not popular enough to have his own series. So what they decided to do is, in Power Man 48, decide to put these two together, and like magic was born. I will say. So the story, it's a 3-part story arc. Power Man breaks into the home of billionaire, because he is a billionaire, Danny Rand, and looking for police detective Misty Knight. A criminal basically was blackmailing him, had kidnapped his friends, and as an added, incentive said, hey, if you bring me Misty Knight, I'll also give you, proof that clears your name in terms of the cocaine possession charges. So he went there, to find her, found Colleen Wing there instead. Colleen Wing calls for Danny and Misty to come help her. Power Man, confesses everything. He almost kills Danny, but stops himself because, with everything he's faced, everything he's been through, he doesn't want to be a murderer as well. So he stops himself, explains the situation. They go rescue his friends, take care of the villains. And then in issue 50, it is renamed Power Man and Iron Fist. And it goes on, so that's in 1978. It goes on till like 1986, I believe. So it runs for quite a while. Yeah. And they're just, this, for lack of a better term, dynamic duo. And just, I think it's cool that they have this strong bond, strong friendship. So, okay. So this one is kind of appropriate. It's the Ancient One from Doctor Strange. Of course, his first appearance was the same first appearance as Doctor Strange, Strange Tales 110. So this is from Captain America 182, February of 75. Also appears in Supernatural Thrillers number 8, August 74. Giant Size Man Thing number 4, May 75. And this is actually from Strange Tales number 15, 115. Art by Steve Ditko. And so they, of course, again, changed the color just a little bit. And this is kind of going through, Doctor Strange's, a little bit of his origin story in this panel. So I said it's appropriate because the other day, when we were talking about Doctor Strange, I was talking about this movie that I ran across from 2007, this animated movie. So I did watch it. And, yeah. Okay, so first I'll say, like, in comics, the Ancient One, I don't even know his real name. I always just call him the Ancient One. He was, from Tibet, near the Himalayas, Karmantaj. And he and his friends, like he was a peaceful farmer, and then his friend discovered magic and shares his discovery with, the Ancient One. But they differ on how to use, magic, how to use this power. Um, the Ancient One wants to create a utopia, and then his friend only wants conquest and power. And so, in an effort to, gain that conquest and power, he mind controls the village elders, and they vote him to be king. And there's a huge conflict, huge battle, and Carmitage is basically destroyed. Um, yeah. I mean, before that though, they use their powers, combine them to, um, when I think, sorry, randomly, when I think, when your power, powers combine, makes me think of Captain Planet. With your powers combined, I am Captain Planet. Anyway, sorry, randomness. So before before they go at each other, they actually combine their powers to eradicate disease and aging and basically death from their little village. And so once their village unfortunately is destroyed, the friend is banished to another dimension, and the Ancient One is stripped of his immortality, which he's still like super, like, he's still really old. He still ages super, super slowly, even if he's not immortal. It's like Thor. He's like 1,500 years old or something like that. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, he's, very old. So, yeah. And then I kind of talked about how, he, Doctor Strange saved, part of his origin was Doctor Strange saved the Ancient One from dying by Mordo. So, okay. This one is Doctor Strange's origin story. And I will say it's totally different than the MCU. Kind of totally different than the comic books, too. They kind of went out on a little bit of a limb. It's not too bad, but basically, part of his origin story is that he became a doctor because, he wanted to help people. And then specifically his little sister, she gets sick one day, and the doctors, can't figure out what's wrong with her. And they're like, there's no hope. She's going to die. And he's like, no, you can't say that. So he said, all these doctors are no good. In 6 months, I'll be your doctor. He was that close to finishing medical school at this point. So he, operates on her. She's like, I'm scared. And he's like, don't be, you're in good hands. And she ends up dying anyway. And so he kind of carries that guilt with him that he wasn't able to save her. So that's kind of part of his origin story, which you'd think if you were trying to save your sister, trying to save your family member, and then all of a sudden they died and you couldn't save them, you would think that you would quit being a doctor. Like, you'd be like, okay, that's it, I'm done. But no, he kind of went the opposite. He leaned more into being a doctor, but only would take cases that bring him glory and money and fame and all that stuff. Like, I guess he didn't care actually anymore about actually saving or helping people, which that's similar to the MCU, comic book origin. There's no Christine in this. There is a doctor, like Gina Atwater, I believe her name is, and they're kind of rivals. She asked him for help with this case, and he's like, I don't have time for this. It's a little girl, and she's developed 8 different like brain aneurysms in a week, which is not possible. So, and she's in a coma, and there's a lot of kids in the same kind of condition, and they're like, we don't know what's going on. So that's why she comes to him, because he's a brilliant neurosurgeon. That's his area of expertise. And in the process, she kind of wakes up and like grabs him, and he sees what she sees. Like, her parents said she's been suffering from nightmares before she got, in this state. And he sees this fire, this, basically, this, well, not good images. Basically, he's seeing Dormammu. So Um, yeah, and in the beginning of the movie, we see Wong, Mordo, and all these other sorcerers fighting this giant monster. And what's interesting is that Wong uses his powers, he uses a spell to hide what they're doing from everybody else. And to everyone else, it looks like a tornado, which seems random, going through the city. But still, they can't tell it's like magical in nature or anything. But Doctor Strange can see them. And, that's kind of a clue as to what's going to come. Of course, anyone that knows Doctor Strange knows, basically his origin story. But anyway, if you'd never heard of him, you'd think, oh, that's interesting that he can see them. And Wong mentions that later, like that he can see, like he could see us. So, he's trying to figure that out. So Doctor Strange has the crash, but it's not really due to his own recklessness. He sees like these visions of kids like in the middle of the road, and he sees like this wall of fire behind him. So he skids to avoid the kids, crashes, ruins his hands, spends basically all of his money until the point where he's homeless trying to fix his hands, which everyone says, it's hopeless, there's no hope, because like pretty much all of the bones in his hands are fractured, like all of them, like all these little teeny tiny fractures. And one day he just feels hopeless, and so he tries to end his life and jump off the bridge. And Wong saves him and says, you'll find your answers in Tibet. So he goes to Tibet after asking Dr. Gina Atwater for help getting to Tibet. He goes, finds the Ancient One, asks for help. Wong is there, so, a familiar face. So pretty much they make him do manual labor until, he's earned the right. And he has like this little cell that has like one little window and like straw on the floor, no bed, no nothing. And Wong says comfort is earned. It's a privilege. So they have him do all these manual labor chores, and he's like, I don't understand how this is supposed to help me use my hands. Like, I still can't even use my hands. Like, he couldn't even use his hands to grab the brushes to scrub the floors. So he ended up tying the brushes to his hands and using like his entire hand basically as a brush, because he couldn't grip the hand, so he just tied it to his hand like this and ended up doing it that way. So then he is supposed to take down this rock wall, and after the rock wall he gets a pillow and a blanket. He earns that. And then he at one point wants to quit. He's like, I don't understand, this is not helping me with my hands. And the Ancient One says, it's not about healing your hands, it's about healing on the inside, because you've gone through so much pain and loss and everything. He appears to him in a vision basically and says, what happened to your sister is not your fault. There's some people that just can't be saved, that aren't meant to be saved, and she was one of them. And Doctor Strange still can't, he still can't accept that, and he tries to leave, and he does end up leaving, and then he comes back, and he notices that the wall that he spent all this time taking down is still there. So he's like, I don't understand. So basically, the wall is his own. He put the wall in his own way, is basically how this happened. So he takes the wall down again, and he earns a hot bath. And so while all this is going on, and Mordo is supposed to be training him, in the ways of the mystic arts, how to use his power, but Mordo is more depicted more as a warrior in this movie, and he thinks he should be the next Sorcerer Supreme, because the Ancient One is sick and he's dying, basically, it seems like. He thinks he should be the next one, and the Ancient One says the reason why you think you should be the next Sorcerer Supreme is the reason why you're not going to be, because you want it too much. Should go to someone who doesn't want it. Like, they don't want it just for the power and the glory. And he basically is in charge of, like, the cadets, the strike teams, because throughout this movie they're fighting all these demons and stuff. And the Ancient One gives him specific instructions to, because there's two huge, like, shadow beasts that have come to attack the Citadel, the Sanctum Sanctorum. And the Ancient One tells him specifically, split your forces, go after them one at a time. And Mordo is like, we're strong enough to take them on both at the same time. So he splits their forces. They lose like 4 cadets, and lots of innocent people are dead. And anyway, so basically it keeps progressing, and they learn that somehow Dormammu is coming through the barrier, even though the Ancient One defeated him long ago and sealed the door, the portal, so he couldn't get through. He is coming through in the minds of these children. And Steven says, well, what happens if I wake them up? Like, all of a sudden, it just, there's not, okay, it's a cartoon movie. It's a short movie. So pretty much he goes from doing chores and one or two fighting scenes with Mordo, because Mordo, like, is frustrated with him and tries to kill him. And an interesting thing that Steven does is that he actually absorbs Mordo's magic. Like, they create swords to fight each other. Strange absorbs his sword, basically, because he absorbs his magic. So it goes from, like, him just, doing chores and manual labor to him having these, like, 2 training scenes, because then Wong takes over his training, to him appearing in, like, a cadet kind of type uniform, and the Ancient One giving him the Eye of Agamotto and saying, you're the next Sorcerer Supreme, basically. Which, of course, makes Mordo, like, super mad. But they go to the hospital. Well, I don't know if he has the Eye of Agamotto at this point. I mean, he definitely doesn't have, like, the cloak of levitation or anything like that right now. But Steven says, what if I wake the kids up? I don't remember if he has the Eye of Agamotto at this point. I can't remember. But, so anyway, what if I wake the kids up? So he starts, like, going into the kids' minds and waking them up one by one. But of course that would take forever, because there's dozens of kids and coma patients all over the city in all the hospitals. Like, they're all at capacity. So it's going too slow. So all of a sudden, all the kids get up and walk out of the hospital. They all meet in, like, one central location. And for me, this was, like, super creepy. Their mouths drop wide open and, like, flames come out. And so this is the Dormammu coming through the portal. And right before he comes through the portal, there's this ginormous, like flock of these weird bird mouth things. Like, literally, they're only a mouth. Like, mouth with wings. It's really weird. And they, like, devour everything. Not everything. They devour people in their path. Like, they are like piranhas. They pick off all the skin and the muscles and stuff, and they're just left with skeletons. That was really weird. It's creepy. I mean, this cartoon, like, doesn't depict it so bad, and because, they just, like, surround the person, like, you can't even see that happening, and then they leave and there's just a skeleton. So it's not like it is graphic or anything like that. So meanwhile, the cadets are fighting all these bat things. Most of them fall. The Ancient One, he's fighting them off too, but he, I mean, it's just kind of too much for him in his weakened state. Mordo finds him, and Mordo actually joined with Dormammu because he's mad that, he's not Sorcerer Supreme. And so he fights the Ancient One and kills him. So, yeah, that sucks. So the Ancient One's gone. So I know that the Ancient One gives Doctor Strange the Eye of Agamotto before he dies, obviously. And then, see, this is okay. It's like, okay, I watch a lot of Hallmark movies with my mom, and like, there's always this conflict that is unnecessary and like dumb. I mean, you know, I mean, I don't mean to like be disrespectful or anything, but it is. There like is a misunderstanding that if they just talked about it, it'd be fine. But anyway, so within the last 2-3 minutes, they solve, everything is fine. And that's what happens in this movie basically is that Wong tells Doctor Strange that Dormammu is a being of pure magic, and so what Doctor Strange does is absorbs Dormammu, like all the magic. I, I was like, oh, that. I mean, if you, of course, if you read comic books and you watch have watched the MCU version, you know that Dormammu can't be beat that easily because it just seemed pretty easy for him to beat him, especially since he didn't really have his full powers yet or anything. So I was like, oh, that's why I haven't watched this movie again, because it was very like kind of anticlimactic. Like it doesn't seem like he should be beat that easily. It just, of course, it's saying, yeah, Doctor Strange, look at him. He's the next Sorcerer Supreme. He's awesome. He's super powerful. But still, I was expecting more of like, more of a struggle, more, like Wong didn't even help him defeat Dormammu, Anyway, so at the end, they talk about how there's still demons and shadow creatures that got released through the portal out there that they needed to hunt down. And then Wong mentions there's a promising, like, they're recruiting more cadets, and cadets is my word, not theirs. And there's a promising young woman named Clea. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then, of course, they never made another of these movies. So, that's like, that makes me think of, Clea being in the little teeny cameo at the end. And you're like, oh, cool, yay, Clea, played by Charlize Theron. And she hasn't been in any movie since then. And like I said, I feel like Secret Wars is just going to be the movie where they just pile everyone in, including her, maybe. So I haven't heard anything about a Doctor Strange, 4 or, anything. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's all, so that's why, yeah, I haven't watched this movie in forever, because I remember being just a little bit, yeah, disappointed, because it was a little bit, like, anticlimactic, and just a little bit, like, yeah, that's not really, like, how that works. Like, that's, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, this movie, this, video ran way longer than it should have, because I was basically telling you what this movie is about. And, yeah, so anyway, I'm sorry about that. I'll be, uploading the Dazzler movie today, or movie. I'm on, my brain says movies now. I'll be uploading the Dazzler video today too. So I hope you join me for that as well. So until next time, bye.